briefly there to Ohio. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, again, the latest CNN electoral map shows still that advantage for Hillary Clinton, but the path for Donald Trump has opened up, some progress there. Let's talk about this with CNN politics reporter Stephen Collinson and Eric Bradner. Good to have both of you back with us this morning. Let's start with this new map here where Clinton now is below 270, but still just 2 points away. I mean, a pickup of a single battleground state there puts her over 270. Trump, as I said, has to run the board and then some.
That's right. Donald Trump has to win every state on that map, and that includes the Maine 2nd Congressional District. There's not a single electoral vote to spare there. And it's going to be hard because the early vote data we're seeing out of some of these key states, I was just crunching the numbers on Nevada, it looks like Hillary Clinton is outperforming President Obama 4 years ago, and he won that state fairly handily. So he's going to need a real surge on Election Day to catch her in that state. Florida and North Carolina are key states to watch. And the question that I'm watching right now is African-American turnout. In North Carolina, we've seen indications that it has fallen off 2012, perhaps not entirely a surprise, but part of this is because there have been fewer early vote locations open, at least especially early in the process. But there are other states with between 15 and 20% African-American electorates. Michigan is one of them that Trump is sort of hoping to put on the board at the very last minute. Florida is another key state. So that's a question that I'm watching this week.
We also know the Republicans do better on Election Day, while Democrats typically do better in early voting.
But if we talk about who's voting, Stephen, one of the key elements that have come in is the Latino vote here, and how much stronger it is this year than it has been in the past.
That's true. If you look at Nevada, there was massive turnout just last night, early voting Latino voters. That's clearly a good sign for the Democrats. That could well be a reaction to the tone of Donald Trump's campaign. His rhetoric about Hispanics, his positions on immigration. We're also seeing very heavy turnout of Latinos in Florida. This is another good sign for the Democrats because they're seeing, as Eric was saying, the African-American vote is down in Florida, in North Carolina, but in Florida, it looks like that could be compensated for by, an increase in the percentage of Latino voters in the wider population of Florida voters. So those are good signs for Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump's campaign is looking at New Hampshire, which seems to have tightened up. It looked like it was almost a clear Hillary Clinton win a few weeks ago. The polls now are deadlocked in New Hampshire, perhaps as a result of the Comey situation with the emails. And they're also looking at Michigan. There was some polling that shows the race has tightened. Hillary Clinton was double digits ahead about a month ago. Some polling suggests it could be 4 or 5 points. Donald Trump needs to put a Democratic state on the table to give himself some insurance, especially if it looks like he's going to lose somewhere like Nevada. So the Trump campaign is going to certainly target Michigan in the next few days.
Can we talk about these huge rallies that we're seeing? We saw yesterday with Jay-Z and Beyonce for Hillary Clinton, and Donald Trump, we showed in the open, said, I didn't bring J-Lo, I didn't bring Jay-Z, I'm here all by myself. As it compares, though, to the ground game, the Democrats clearly have the advantage in the battleground states. The Trump campaign believing that his being there and those rallies are motivating people to get out. He's in 4 states today, starting there. Are we seeing evidence that Trump alone out there is equaling in any way what we're seeing from the Democrats?
Well, no, and that's in part why you see this surge in Latino turnout. That's something Democrats have been working on for not just months, but more than a year now. Hillary Clinton built a ground game starting in early 2015. It's impossible for the RNC and Trump's campaign to match that, but that's why you see Trump with such an aggressive schedule. He's not just trying to counter the Democratic strength on the ground, but also Hillary Clinton has tons of surrogates. She has the president, Michelle Obama, Bill Clinton, Bernie Sanders,
Joe Biden,
etc.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders.
But Donald Trump is trying to do this himself. He has people like Rudy Giuliani and Chris Christie sort of hobbled by recent controversies. So he has to be everywhere. He has really no choice but to outwork the Democrats, and that's sort of just to keep pace at this point.
Stephen, last word?
Yeah, crowds are an interesting barometer in the last few days. When you're on a campaign, covering a campaign, you see big crowds and you think, wow, there's real momentum here. Mitt Romney had it in 2012. I remember being out with John Kerry in the 2004 campaign. He was getting massive crowds. There was a real feeling, look, we've got momentum. This means we're going to win the election. But often, you know, it is a sign of enthusiasm, but it's not necessarily a sign of turnout. And these things can be deceptive in the final days.
And you've got to wonder how many of those people came out yesterday to see Jay-Z and Beyonce really aren't going to vote.
Right.
So we'll see in the numbers just a couple of days now, 3 days.
Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we were talking last hour, Willie, about Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama and Barack Obama, two extraordinary speeches yesterday, and it's a likelihood that two of the best speakers on the political scene come from the same family.
One thing to remember, too, is when the Obamas really got into big-time presidential politics 8 years ago, she did not want to do any of this stuff. She did not even want to campaign very much. She certainly didn't want to make big sweeping speeches like this. And she's grown into a role now 8 years later where put yesterday together with her convention speech, maybe two of the most memorable speeches of the campaign cycle. She's perhaps become, alongside the president, her most valuable ally to Secretary Clinton. So we just did hear some of the First Lady's speech in New Hampshire yesterday. President Obama also went after Donald Trump hard last night, but much of his focus was also on those down ballot races. At a Democratic state dinner in Columbus, Ohio, the president was campaigning for Hillary Clinton, but also for Senate candidate Ted Strickland, who's currently trailing Senator Rob Portman big by double digits in the polls.
I understand that Ted's opponents finally withdrawn his support from Donald Trump after looking at the polling, now that it's politically expedient. But he supported him up until last week. So I guess it was okay when Trump was attacking minorities and suggesting that Mexicans were rapists and Muslims were unpatriotic and insulting Gold Star moms and making fun of disabled Americans. I guess that didn't quite tip it over the edge. Why was that okay? We don't even think that most Republican politicians actually really believe that Donald Trump's qualified to be president. You know, I know because I talked to them. They're all like, man, this is really bad. We're just trying to get through this. So the problem is not that all Republicans think the way this guy does. The problem is that they've been riding this tiger for a long time. They've been feeding their base all kinds of crazy for years, primarily for political expedience. When finally the guy that they nominated and they endorsed and they supported is caught on tape saying things that no decent person would even think, much less say, much less brag about, much less laugh about, or joke about, much less act on. You can't wait until that finally happens and then say, oh, that's too much, that's enough, and think that somehow you are showing any kind of leadership and deserve to be elected to the United States Senate. You don't get points for that.
So Ari Fleischer, obviously President Obama and Michelle Obama going hard against Donald Trump yesterday. What is the state of this race right now? What is the state of the Republican Party? Where is this a wipeout for everybody with an R by their name? Does Trump still have a shot at winning, or is this everybody for themselves?
I think the state of the party is it's deeply split. The state of the race at the presidential level is virtually over. The state of the party beyond that, I think Republicans are going to hold the Senate and certainly hold the House, because Donald Trump is such an aberration. He is such an independent running for president, not a classic Republican, that I don't see this shaping up as a wave election, even if he loses by 5 or 6.
Let's talk about your second. So you think this presidential race is just about over?
Virtually over. The only thing that can save Donald Trump now, frankly, is some type of external intervention of some sort that changes the agenda. Because what's happened that's killed Donald Trump in this is he happily has made the race about himself. And this was a change election. This race needed to be about Hillary Clinton. It needed to be about policy. But everything now has made it about Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is extremely unpopular. That's why he cannot get over this hump against the second most unpopular person in America.
Ari, what happens, and I've had some Republicans express concern to me about this, what happens to Republicans who have stood by Donald Trump publicly in terms of their future political ambitions? Could we have a cascade effect here over the next cycle or two of the next generation of Republican leaders because they tied themselves to somebody who has the potential of going down so dramatically?
You know, I've been looking ahead and trying to figure out what will happen the day after the election for Republicans. And what happens most depends on what Donald Trump does. If he returns to Fifth Avenue and leaves politics, the Republican Party will largely start to reset after some internal turmoil. If he stays active in politics, the Republican Party will remain deeply split for a while. Who will take over the Republican National Committee? Will be a Trump supporter? These are the divisions the party's going to have to work out. Now, having said all this, it is a healthy part of democracy. We are a self-correcting democracy. Republicans got their clocks cleaned in '64 with Goldwater, came back in a landslide 4 years later with Nixon. Democrats lost the House in 2002. I remember David Gregory of NBC News did a stand-up on the North Lawn and said, Democrats are in disarray. I was press secretary, and I thought to myself, no, they're not. They just lost an election. This is America. You lose, you win, you come back.
But they won't be guilty by association.
No, I think that there really is a sense of distancing because Donald Trump is so unique, and that's what's going to be the savior.
Well,
this is why a Rob Portman can
and Ari,
Marco
I've got to
Rubio
say, I'm
can
surprised. Let's go through some numbers because
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.
Well, he's a professor with a remarkable record of predicting election outcomes. And despite what recent polls say and what everyone in Washington and on television is saying, this Real Clear Politics poll, including this one, this man is sticking by his prediction of a Trump victory. Here to explain is Stony Brook University professor Helmut Norpoth. Professor, it's great to see you.
Thank you very much for having me.
So you are almost alone.
Yes.
Among academics, predicting a Trump win, not because you're coming out for Trump, but because you have a model that you believe leads to the conclusion he's going to win. Tell us about this model. How have you arrived at this conclusion?
Well, there are two things. Okay, the model is called the primary model, so I take into account primary elections, real elections, how the candidates are performing, and I can track primaries for about 100 years, since 1912. So it's quite a set of elections.
Yes.
And it usually turns out that the candidate who does better in his party's primaries, or her party primaries, beats the other guy who does less well. And so in this election, the primaries that I'm relying on, it's only New Hampshire and South Carolina.
Yes.
Donald Trump came out on top, better than Hillary Clinton in the Democratic race. And
that seems like a fair measure. And what's the other one? What's the other
one is what I call the swing of the pendulum, the tendency after, let's say, 2 terms of the White House party being in office, that there's a change. And I can track that actually for a longer period of time, for almost 200 years. And that also gives a prediction that Republicans are favored this year.
So a lot of us in the TV business make predictions, and we say it, and we say we believe it. But do we really believe it? Do we believe it enough to bet on it? Do you believe your prediction enough to put your money in a legal way in a betting market behind your prediction?
Yes, I have. I've gone all in the Iowa market, which is sort of the oldest prediction market, where it's legal to do that. And I bought shares for the Republican candidate way a long time ago, and I'm sticking with it.
So with 18 days to go, are you still confident?
Yes, I am.
Is your wife upset? Does she think you're going to lose the money? Or does she trust you?
Well, it's let's say it's a $500 max, so it's not the house, it's not the pension fund, etc. So but it is something.
How much chaos will there be among other professional predictors if Trump wins? You'll be almost the only person who called that.
Well, I think the only ones are really sort of a big deal at stake are the pollsters.
Yes.
I mean, because they have. I mean, for them, it's big business. I mean, for academics, it's different. There are actually quite a few colleagues of mine who also have a prediction that Trump is going to make it. I'm not the only one among academics who are doing that.
Interesting.
But I won't mention them because some of them are a little leery of that.
I bet they are. So this is Professor Helmut Norpoth. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I want to spell his name. Helmut Norpoth. Google him. You can read more. You're going to be a hero.
PrimaryModel.com.
PrimaryModel.com. If you're right, I hope you'll come back.
Well, thank you very much,
Great to see you, Professor.
I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you very much.
My mother, Dorothy, was abandoned by her parents as a young girl. She ended up on her own at 14 working as a housemaid. She was saved by the kindness of others. The lesson she passed on to me stuck with me. No one gets through life alone. And she made sure I learned the words from our Methodist faith. Do all the good you can, for all the people you can, in all the ways you can, as long as ever you can. So I went to work for the Children's Defense Fund, going door to door on behalf of children with disabilities who were denied the chance to go to school.
I went to South Carolina to investigate the plight of 12 and 13-year-old boys imprisoned alongside grown men who had committed serious felonies. In Alabama, I helped expose the racism of segregated academies. In Arkansas, I ran a legal aid clinic that provided representation to poor families and prison inmates who could not afford it.
I've been your First Lady, served 8 years as a senator.
Don't let anybody forget what happened here.
Then as Secretary of State. But my job titles only tell you what I've done. They don't tell you why.
My mother taught me that everybody needs a chance and a champion.
And I still hear her voice urging me to keep working, keep fighting for right no matter what.
Human rights are women's rights. Gay rights are human rights. I wish my mother could have been with us longer. I wish she could have seen Chelsea become a mother herself. I wish she could have seen the America we're going to build together. An America where a father can tell his daughter, yes, you can be anything you want to be, even President of the United States.